It is the year 220 BC. The Iberian Peninsula became a battleground for conquering Romans. But when the dust settled, what did these victorious Romans decide to do? Throw epic parties, of course. They turned from wielding swords to raising glasses, embracing the spirit of festivities, and indulging in the fine art of orgies. And if there's a god overseeing this sinfully delightful drink fest, it's none other than the Roman god of wine, Bacchus himself. Now fast forward to the real wine pioneers. You see, if drinking wine is part of your job description, you certainly don't want to settle for stuff that will sour your day. Priests used red wine in mass, and it tended to end up as vinegar. Aiming for better work conditions, the Cistercian monks in Lamego, a small village in the north of Portugal, started to work on a solution. With divine inspiration and maybe a nudge from above, they embarked on an ingenious quest to refine the winemaking process. Armed with faith and with plenty of time on their hands, they rolled up their sleeves and started to add distilled spirits to the process. The result? The heavenly elixir we now know as port wine. This clever solution not only amped up the taste, but also gave the wine more durability. So, there you have it, the divine origins of port wine, where devotion met innovation and the clergy took sipping to an entirely new level. The next chapter in this saga takes us to rainy London. If there is something worse than the English weather, it is their wine. You see, back in 1600s they loved wine. As the saying goes, the French have wine, the English have humour. Since humour and rainy weather don't make a party, the English were importing wine from France, lots of it. This left some Englishmen rather miffed. They saw that the French were making a killing, becoming rich and drunk, whilst the English were only becoming drunk. But you know what they say, there is no good problem that a creative politician can't solve. That's when Sir William Harvard came up with a clever plan. In 1678, Parliament slapped a big old embargo on French wine imports. It was like saying, no more French wine for us. So the wine scene was about to change big time. Talk about aiming your royal musket and shooting your own foot. King Charles II was running out of wine and addressed Parliament to make it crystal clear that he was utterly miserable about the whole situation. This is where these two daring chaps from Liverpool come in. To solve this wine problem in England, their wine merchant father sent them off on a special mission in the name of His Majesty and of course a way to make some profit with the wine misery. Their mission? To find new suppliers for good wine, preferably not shaken and not stirred, as that makes wine go sour. They left for Portugal, armed with taste buds sharper than Bond's gadgets and the desire to open up new trade routes. When in Portugal, you do as the Portuguese do, and that means sharing a drink, or two, with your newfound buddies. The two Liverpool lads were no strangers to the art of good company and fine drinking. So they clinked glasses and shared hearty laughs with their monk pals, making the delightful acquaintance of, you guessed it, port wine. It's like they say, when in douro, sip as the monks do. The mission was a total success. Not only had they found a source of excellent sweet wine, but they also struck a deal that would make any wine enthusiast raise a glass in celebration. Picture this: 408 barrels of the monks' liquid treasure, all now property of the shrewd sons of a Liverpool wine merchant. It wasn't just a deal. It was a wine heist of epic proportions, leaving the monks both baffled and, dare I say, a bit proud of their newly found partners in wine-related crime. Europe in 1701 was basically a giant soap opera. The French were rooting for their favorite candidate to rule the Spanish throne, the English had their own agenda, and the other royal houses were picking sides faster than you can say family drama. It was like a messy Game of Thrones, but without dragons. In the midst of this regal chaos, in 1703, Portugal and England decided they needed to sit down and have a serious talk. So they whipped out the quills, signed the Methuen Treaty, and hoped it would bring some much-needed peace and quiet to their family reunion. Because nothing says, "Let's be friends," like a good old treaty during a European family quarrel. Fast forward to the good stuff. The Methuen Treaty wasn't just about fancy words and official signatures. It was a booster for port wine exports. The English agreed to lower the taxes on Portuguese wine imports, and in return, the Portuguese would do the same for English wool and textiles. Oh, and by the way, the treaty gave the Portuguese another beloved staple food that delights them up to these days, none other than the legendary salted codfish, or bacalhau as they call it. Cheers to diplomatic deals that not only shape nations, but also spice up dinner menus. Ah, the sweet taste of success. Or was it the sweet taste of port wine? The Methuen Treaty worked its magic. Coins were jingling. Wine started flowing up north and textiles down south. Everybody happy. Not so fast, my wine-loving friend. You didn't think this would be the happy end. But as they say, with great coin comes great consequences. The wine business was booming, and soon it seemed like everyone and their mother was in the wine business. However, as the demand soared higher than a tipsy bird, a new problem loomed over the horizon of the port wine saga. Shortage. What to do when you've got thirsty customers and not enough barrels to go around? Enter the crafty Portuguese, masters of turning lemons into lemonade, or in this case, water into wine. Shady figures emerged from the shadows, armed with solutions as dubious as they were creative. One of these involved diluting the wine, stretching it thin with a dash of, well, let's just call it crafty solutions, like the mysterious addition of water and other unholy substances. This led to a poor quality port wine, and the customers up north were miffed again. In the tumultuous world of the port wine saga, a new figure enters the stage, the bold Marquis de Pombal, a man with a taste for order and a disdain for shenanigans. Faced with the chaos of northern winemaking, he slammed his iron fist on the desk and decided, enough is enough. Picture this, 1756 was the birth of port wine standards. Pombal, fueled by a passion for quality, established the world's first demarcated wine region in the Douro. He literally drew a line in the vineyard sand and declared who was allowed to produce grapes for port wine production. He protected the purity and quality of port wine by law. The Marquis was a man of action. He wasn't content with just drawing lines. No. He closed down taverns like a strategic game of chess. He slashed the amount of taverns that were allowed to sell port wine from over 1,000 to less than 100. The result, coins clinking in the state treasury, and Pombal himself building a reputation as the maestro of fiscal finesse. Yet every hero makes enemies, and Pombal was no exception. The British wine merchants, once the puppeteers of profit, found their strings cut. As the quality of port wine soared to new heights, Pombal's enemies grew. It's a tale of ambition, authority, and a touch of wine-induced drama, the Marquis de Pombal's symphony of power in the world of port wine. In the next chapter of this thrilling saga, a simple and yet genius innovation takes center stage to change port wine forever. Let's make one thing absolutely crystal clear. When it comes to the fine art of drinking and eating, humanity's relentless pursuit of an enhanced experience knows absolutely no bounds. One big innovation in the 1700s made port wine even better. What was it? You see, since Roman times, wine was stored and transported in wooden casks and then transferred to other vessels like amphoras or glass bottles to sell in smaller quantities. Glass bottles were made by glass blowers, and this resulted in very rounded shapes, almost like balloons. As you can imagine, these are impossible to lay down and store for any length of time. Laying down is essential to keep the corks moist and therefore the seal in good condition, otherwise the wine is ruined. Ricketts of Bristol, a British glass company, found a way to create elongated bottles in an industrialized way. Now it was possible to lay the good stuff down and let it age in the bottle. This led to the world's first vintage edition of a port wine, the year 1765, became an excellent bottle-aged port and ended up in the Christie's auction catalogue of 1773. And then, an unexpected twist cast a shadow over port and wine production in Europe. It began with curious British botanists importing vine plants from American vines to boost production in Europe. Sadly, these plants were infected with a small yellow louse, and the disease quickly spread across the continent. By the early 1800s, France had lost almost all its wine. Northern Portugal felt the impact in 1850, and nearly all plants were affected. Despite various attempts, no solution could be found, leading to the closure or bankruptcy of many port wine companies. Throughout this story, many characters contributed to carry the torch of port wine making into our times. This crisis was no different. New British wine merchants invested and bought abandoned vineyards to salvage what could be saved and become lost in time. It was an effort that had many faces, many new characters entering the port wine scene. Some of them were in Portugal since the middle of the 17th century, like Kopke, founded by a German ambassador in 1638 as an exporter of regular wine, and Taylor's, established by Job Beersley as early as 1692. It was during the 19th century that new brands established themselves in Portugal to become traditional household names, bettering the port wine process. Among them are Nieuwpoort from the Netherlands, Kroon from Norway, Graham's from England. Not to forget the young George Sandeman, a daring Scotsman who founded the famous brand with a capital of £300 in 1790. But this story would not be complete without mentioning one of the most beloved and daring characters in port wine history. A resolute Portuguese woman that became a widow at 33 years of age and fought to build a port wine empire, Antonia Adelaide Ferreira. Imagine this. She inherited her father's vineyards, but she faced a string of serious misfortunes. The wine disease was wreaking havoc on the business. Her husband had squandered the family fortune, and with 2 children in tow, she was left to salvage an almost bankrupt enterprise. Dona Ferreira did what countless resilient women have done in similar situations. She rolled up her sleeves and turned things around. Her legacy wasn't just about her beloved standing among the workers, fighting for their rights against the government and in a male-dominated industry of the 1850s. She was also a trailblazer in the world of port wine cultivation. Her quest for solutions led her all the way to England, where she studied innovative techniques to combat the phylloxera, the notorious yellow loose disease. The key was grafting Portuguese plants with their American counterparts, which were resistant to the disease. Throughout her lifetime, she not only rescued the family business, but also crafted a brand that endures in Portugal to this day, proudly bearing her family name, Ferreira. Port wine weathered many challenges, and by the beginning of the 20th century, it had firmly established itself in diverse markets and as a wine worthy of many traditions. The vibrant 1920s witnessed a genuine port wine renaissance, propelling the success story to greater heights over time. In a momentous nod to its heritage, UNESCO crowned over 26,000 hectares of the Douro region as a World Heritage Site in 2001. This distinction underscores the area's intrinsic value, deserving protection for the enjoyment of future generations. The journey of port wine's success and metamorphosis persists. As of 2022, an impressive 26 million litres of port wine flow annually. The kaleidoscopic landscape of the port wine world has welcomed numerous boutique brands, each adding its unique hue to the vibrant tapestry of this cherished tradition. Here's to the resilient Romans, the ingenious monks, the royals, and the visionaries and entrepreneurs who carried the torch across centuries, bringing forth an exquisite legacy to our times. Would you like to immerse yourself in this captivating journey? Join us for one of our tours along the picturesque Douro River. Picture yourself traveling in a historic locomotive along the riverbanks, or indulging in a delightful chocolate and wine tasting experience within one of Porto's original warehouses. If you're more inclined towards romance, savor a river cruise, naturally with a glass of fine port in hand. All these incredible experiences can be booked through sintraexplorers.com. We extend a warm invitation to subscribe to our channel for more enthralling Portugal stories, from the enchanting to the inspiring. History has a way of being truly fascinating.